these very, it kind of matches what I just said, and I'll say a few words about it, but I wanted to tie this to the title. And the title, can you still hear me okay? All right. Structural photography, or structure photography, the name of my website, so people wouldn't try to spell my name, so I'm just going with structure photography. And so it really started with the idea of photography during COVID. And for me, particularly, what does that mean in my world of photography? And through the photos, I'll give some commentary. I don't have much to explain in each photo other than this is why I find this to be an interesting photo. I might have 50 more photos behind this one, but this is the one that I chose to publish, and all the other ones will never be seen. So I will just make sort of visual commentary, what was interesting to me, because I think all of us in our journey of whatever photography you like to do, you pose the same question. If you go out and you travel and or just walk around here and take 1,000 photos of Dallas or Fort Worth or whatever, well, what do you do with that? How do you kind of narrow this down? And what is your relationship with the photos you take? Which ones are good? Which ones are not very good? Those are interesting questions. So I'll just point out why I like the photo and what I was looking for. Because this is about, kind of the title is COVID. As strange it is to sort of talk about COVID, we try not to talk about COVID and step away from this. But the photos you're about to see, first 20 photos, I think, were taken during COVID. Most of them Dallas-Fort Worth, some actually traveled, and so I took some other photos. And so I'm going to give some commentary, including, was this photo possible before COVID? Maybe it's because there were no police to chase me from a certain angle. Not really a joke, but yeah, let's go with that one. And I'll give commentary when it's appropriate. This one, it's a good start. This is on Ross Avenue in Dallas. Right across from the Dallas Museum of Art. This is the white thing is the new garage, and the building behind has been around for 30 years. Well, when you line it up like this, it sort of loses what's exactly happening. The white garage, the clouds, how they meet in the middle, that was it. The photo kind of collapsed on itself. And if you move around a little bit, the photo is gone. So you have to be in the middle of Ross Avenue to take this photo, literally. And so it was just opportune. You count seconds, you hope for the best, and you stand in the middle and you take a photo. And as you might know, I can easily get lost in a viewfinder that I'm lost with. Where am I really standing? How long have I been here? So it's good to kind of keep a count when the bus might be driving by. So that's one example. And this photo, the sky is exactly where I needed to be. The garage is exactly where I needed to be. And that's it. There are about 40, 50 photos. This is the one that worked the best. The clouds, I figured out what's happening, so I waited. There is a tree right here. There's a light right here, and I just have to move around. Zoom in and zoom out, which is part of the post-processing I do. I crop it around and get things out of the way as best as I can. That's one of the main things that I do.
Oh, what time was it taken?
What time of the day? I can remember, but I can also look at the angle there. Afternoon. Yeah, 3-ish, 4-ish. I could open up the file and see the exact timestamp, but something like that. And so that's the story of this photograph. There's going to be about 20 photographs from COVID era, if you will, and then I just extended it to other photography from Dallas and Fort Worth, kind of a shared visual language that might be kind of continuing the interest that we can share in these spaces that I photographed. And then after that, some photographs that have nothing to do with Dallas, Fort Worth, from travels around the States or around the world that I historically think have been most noticed, most visible, most successful, however you might define that. Does anybody know what building this is in Dallas? This is not, I'm not going to trick you at any point or ask you all the time. I'm sorry? It is not First Baptist, but I know which angle it might be. This is the Omni Hotel. If you ever go to Dallas off of 30, the one that has all the drawings and things on it. Yeah, so this is just from an angle. There is this right here is a very long side of the hotel before it wraps right here at kind of the end. So there's a huge middle area. I just collapsed it by standing kind of close to the tower on top of some sort of a bench, and it just collapses the hotel. The point was, there are 3 sections, not really rule of thirds. It's It's not easily divided, but very close to it, and you're kind of lost in what's happening in the building. But these lines are just reflecting on itself on both sides. There's nothing done to the photo other than I took 100 of them until, well, maybe not 100, until one worked. This is kind of lucky in downtown Dallas. Well, lucky, I've stared at it for months. On the left is the actual sky, and on the right is an advertisement for Absolute Vodka, maybe? So on the right, it's whatever, it says Absolute at the top, and on the right is the actual sky, and you can see that this is an advertisement that is like hooked onto the building, and that's just downtown Dallas. So at first, it's kind of I'm speaking my truth, it's kind of a cliche, oh yeah, there's a banner and it looks like it's the sky and there's the sky behind it, but the actual coloring really worked well. It's very much the same type of blue. And this one is very vertical, which confuses what is happening. And then one on the left is kind of ambiguous. And so the photo for this is, the name of this is, should I stay or should I go? And a lot of my photos are split down the middle and there's a juxtaposition where it's a dance between familiarization and defamiliarization, that you're like, yeah, I know this. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't. What's happening? Am I close? Am I far? Am I floating? Am I not? What is happening? Which is, to me, a pleasant journey, especially when you tie it together and you know what it is, which ties me to an important point about my photography. Every photo that I ever publish on my website and then use in whatever other places that might exist, I publish the exact coordinates where I took the photo from. And so you can go there, type it in Street View, like Google Maps, and literally go there and look around and zoom in and get a sense, oh, that's what was happening. Almost kind of, my job is computer science, and so the idea of open source, I'm sharing with you, you take it from there, you do whatever you want to do with this, and play with it. And there have been articles in magazines that they've taken specifically that interest of like, wait a second, we can really go and kind of check, and then they would write about stuff, and they would try to crop the same image, and it was really interesting to see what people do with that. Can I talk a little louder? Yes. Is this too loud? It's not too loud. Okay.
The Zoom people need it louder.
Understood. Thank you for that. Sorry, Zoom people. Sorry about that. This, as Kelly often knows, as I drive next to a building, I shake my fist for years. And this is one of those buildings. This is the Dallas Opera. I don't know what to do with the Dallas Opera. The beautiful awning in front of it. We love classical music, often go to the opera or to the symphony, and I would stop here and go, I don't know what to do with this. And I don't. And I tried and I tried and I tried and I took photos and I keep them in my internal secret library where I suffer and look at them for a year or two. No joke, I do. It's on my desktop. There's photos that I will publish over the next 3 years that I suffer through and rethink their value and meaning. So it was through COVID that I literally almost half defeated. I say it jokingly. I would go there and just go, what do I do with this? And I sat in front of the cafe, which is not open now, I don't think anymore. And I just sat on the floor going, I don't know what to do with this awning. When I started seeing the pattern of the shade, the shadows, the black and white of the awning, this building behind, which is One Plaza, whatever it's called. And it just started being like, there's an X to it, it's balanced nicely, and it was worth it. And that was it. That was the singular representation of the Dallas Opera. And it was a great joy to be done with suffering of trying to figure out what to do with the Dallas Opera. This is the Republic Tower, I think, which is right across from the Thanksgiving Square, because that is the Thanksgiving Square. That is the twirly Philip Johnson. The Philip Johnson Twirly, that's the official architectural name, but it's the Thanksgiving Chapel. So a few things are happening here. They're lined up in a way that it looks like this is some alien thing that wraps around the building, but also because of light at the time of the day, probably strong afternoon light. It literally switched the colors of reality. The Republic Tower is dark panels. It's black. Metal panels. This is black in real life. This is completely white. The fact that this is dark is not a surprise. It's complete shade. So it's just, it looks dark. This is just super bright. but it's a dark building, kind of metallic. So it completely flipped on itself. And the fact that I'm using the middle again and anchoring it on something that doesn't really exist. And these two things are 40 feet apart. But I'm lining it up to where it kind of confuses you 3D, 2D, what's really happening. This is you guys. Fort Worth. Forget the guy's name, the artist that does the beautiful sculpture at the Burnett Plaza. But he had a beautiful piece at the Nasher, the long pole where people are walking up the pole into the sky. I forget his name now, sorry, I should know this. So this is, obviously these are unrelated. This is right in front of the beautiful Burnett Plaza, and this is just some building across. And I lined it up to where it looks like there is big, thick metal awning in front of a building, but there isn't. There's a big, whatever street that is, 97, I don't know. So that was a joy because I've been here a billion times and I wanted to do something with that. That's the guy holding the briefcase. And so when you abstract that out, that is his negative shape of his body, but I used it with the building behind. And again, now I'm done. I don't have to shape my face with the building anymore. This is the one where it's good that there is no police around. This is one of my absolutely favorite photographs. Personal decision for this, just my personal explanation to myself. This is a joy, and I don't know when the world is. You're seeing photographs I'm not going to publish for a long time because I slowly do that. Not that I'm saying that there's an value of what I'm saying, but that's my truth. I slowly release photos, maybe 10 a year. This is the one that I had all the time in the world, and I had friends that were. This is at Fair Park in Dallas, Art Deco everywhere, and this is the auditorium next to wherever the bird thing is. I don't know the name of this building. Thank you. So what's happening here is, this is the auditorium that this is the stage that just has these rings on top of it. And this is all the way on the front end, this wall. But the lucky thing is, that happens to be in shade. This is not yet in shade. And you see a little sliver of the shade, which is right there, that is creeping on the other side. But I caught it right down the middle. And this one required climbing in illegal ways, meaning illegal. It would be just get down, nothing more than that. But it was a very tricky balance point. And then you're barely standing there and looking through. A viewfinder is very kind of messing with your balance. So this one, to me, it's going to be named something referring to George O'Keeffe. The colors, the morning, the gradient. This is George O'Keeffe morning or something like that, which tells you nothing about the photo other than that I love George O'Keeffe and her visuals. And this is completely real, dirty concrete holes, whatever it is, and untouched in any way, except I just had to find a way. And I went back 5, 6, 7 times, just walking around going, what do I do with this building? And once this happened, it's a huge relief, joy, and I just look at the photo quite often, and I'm just happy that it exists. So this was a good one, not to have police officers. This is downtown Dallas. One of the things that I like to do is juxtaposition of things that are kind of similar but not. And this is just a high-rise somewhere downtown Dallas, right across from DMA, Dallas Museum of Art, the building behind. And this is 6 blocks down, right across from Perot Museum. This is just old billboard pieces of wood, whatever, and there's a billboard on top. So the sun was right behind me. These 3 are brown and weird and similar but different. And the facade behind is kind of consistent, same but kind of different. And it just flattens vertical brown things in the urban environment very nicely. So that was completely unexpected. Power lines. This is the Calatrava Bridge over Dallas, and power lines right next to it. I find similar beauty in both of them, which is why I wanted to take the photo. They really quote. You can almost imagine that I can take the power lines and connect them at the top, and they are a similar structure compared to a $42 million bridge right next to it. So I've always enjoyed taking photos of the bridge, and so doing this juxtaposition of really expensive piece of art, city of Dallas putting electrical equipment in the city, and yet there is this shared language. They're close to each other. There's tension in the physical wires that exist on both ends. ones are kind of artificial, the other ones are very real. Good luck with this one. I posted this on Facebook and asked, and it was wonderful suffering from friends. This is Dallas. Do you want to try to guess what's happening? Why is there a person climbing in the middle of the Amazon in Dallas? It's the Latino Cultural Center, not quite in Deep Ellum, but you're completely right, this is a very recognizable part of it. Congratulations to figuring that out. On the left side, it's the Latino Cultural Center, LCC, in Dallas. That's the blue tower right in front of it. And this is right in front of it, this, whatever that is, the flowers. What is behind is the Sheraton Hotel Apple phone advertisement. So this was taken with this is probably illegal that I'm using this to take a photo. But this thing is the advertisement. And the fact that there is greenery and light in it that looks so similar to this, and it looks like you just go around the wall and climb the jungle in Dallas. That was just pure luck. But this was like sitting in a shrubbery on the ground, lining it up. And this was a completely nonsensical discovery. But I elevated it as I looked at the photo. It really is just so beautifully confusing that this is one of the main photos at the gallery in Dallas. They enjoyed it. It sold well. It's just one of those things. So yeah, that is the Latino Cultural Center. Bravo, that is an awesome guess. Sharpest Edge is the name of this photograph. This quotes my computer science interests. The left side looks like a broken file that is corrupted. You try to save it, but your computer died, the file is dead. You try to open it up, you can't open it. It's dead, it just has weird lines. This is the Wiley Theater and the Arts District on the left. That's the facade. And the new Hall Hotel, I forget the name of it, that's the balcony shadow of the building right next to it. So it just literally looked like sharpest edge. Something is cutting something. It's kind of cutting through the Texas sky. And the fact that this facade is just these beautiful uniform pipes, it is just surreal anyway. Just to walk up to the building, it's surreal. And then you have the sky, and then you have just these jagged edges. It was just a wonderful discovery. This is taken roughly from the opera right next to it, kind of symphony opera. I'm not sure exactly where it was. This is all coded, which just, there was time. It was time to do things. This is the new park. So, well, you can see the reflection of the Sheraton Hotel. That's the Sheraton Hotel. So it's a new park. I forget the name of it. But it has this beautiful awning, this cover, this round thing that goes all the way around. It has these little openings that look like, again, digital files, zeros and ones and opening and closing. And I just like the idea of, it's a square photo, but it almost forces this round frame in a square photo, and it breaks the rules of photography, if you will. And everything is a reflection of something else. Everything is glass and concrete and reflections, and it's hard to kind of figure out what's happening. But it was the right amount of light, and I went back maybe 3-4 times. And the fact, to me, photographically, I'm forcing you to consider an internal frame to the visual space that is really physically there in Dallas. So this looks like some sort of a religious space for peace and quiet and contemplation, and this is really just underneath Highway 30 at the Trinity River. I spend a lot of time there. It's a joy visually what happens, and it's a weird dialogue with police, literally, like what is happening. And I don't joke, it's not a funny matter, but they do their job, I'm there. It's just normal dialogue. And so, yeah, I would stand on these incredibly lucky angles where you would just have supports under the bridge, and you can go up and down and change your vertical and look at the city very differently. And so, yeah, I spent some time there, and this just looks like a beautifully serene space, and it's incredibly loud with 30 over my head, Highway 30, and just trucks and horns and trash everywhere, but you don't see it. So, yeah, that is just underneath Highway 30. This is one of my favorites. It's an unexpected discovery. Just the building on Bikini Avenue that kind of has a tilted facade that has two sides that meet, and because it's tilted outwardly, so floors go like this, it just has a weird thing that I decided to anchor it on this, but this is a normal building that just happens to get a weird angle. So really, without going there online or walking by, it's kind of hard to make sense out of it. But the fact that it reflects uptown area, and I don't have a clue exactly what this is. I don't know. I know that part of the time I live there. I don't know what that reflection is. This is the Ritz-Carlton reflection, and I don't know what the little thing is. So it's just it looks Photoshopped, two things put together, but it's literally a building that just looks weird when you put it in a certain frame like this. This is one, that's again under the bridge on 30, and this one combines probably 650 different things that I love about photography. It just forces so many considerations. This is the Hyatt Hotel. The top you might recognize. So the Reunion Tower is right here. That's the Hyatt Regency that continues down. That's the same building. And this is a reflection of the jail across the street behind me in Dallas. And this is whatever the on-ramp is. But that cuts your visual from what looks normal to, it looks like the sky, but it's not. It's really the same building, but this is the same shape and size as this. So this is also being reflected. And I've gone back there, and I think I would tell Kelly when I get home, like I fell into the Trinity again. Because I figured you can park on one side, pay money, go take photos, go back, find your car, hopefully, go back around, go back on 30, go back over around, find another place, or you just kind of have to jump over the Trinity. Just slightly, a little bit muddy. And so I figured it out mostly with luck, and it really saved me time. So this photograph, at first, sort of, is it visually striking? Not really. But there's so much going on. I mean, you consider the reality of all the dimensions and what's visually quoting what. It's just, to me, it was a joy to sort of find it. It's a great question. This is the camera that I use, the only camera. It's not a DSLR. It's a $350 Nikon Super Zoom. And all the correcting, when necessary, is done in Photoshop rather than lenses. And because I depend on, I use a Super Zoom, so this is 1600 millimeters roughly. It has a pretty good stabilizer in it. And I just know I don't use a tripod. I travel with this and nothing else. So I'm just using my body and breathing correctly and sort of imagining just whatever it is to just breathe calmly and take a photo. So I'm usually at a good distance that I don't really have to make a big adjustment. There's going to be one photo where I did make it. I'll point you. You will definitely recognize the photo.
What's the range of the lens?
In terms of millimeters, roughly up to 1600 millimeters is what this one is. And this is a D. Clearly, I'm an expert. I have to read the name of my camera. It's a Coolpix B700 by Nikon. Yes.
Handheld.
Handheld. It's exactly. I carry that backpack. That's it. And I have this, and I have an additional battery, and not even another memory stick because it's enough. I'm sorry. No, I shake if I don't drink coffee. So I drink coffee. No, I don't. It's, I mean, I don't mean to sound like a ninja of some kind, that I like calm down and I don't have a pulse anymore and I just exist with the universe. It's just old tricks, look for some way to anchor it, learn my breathing rhythm and take, like, don't shake and be relaxed, almost like archery or whatever. Just know how to know your body, know your camera. But this is it. It's a great question. I don't need to talk a lot about equipment because I don't have much to say, but I've gone through the DSLR story and I realized a very simple thing. I had to have two bodies and I had to have a 300 millimeter lens and I would need an 800 millimeter lens. Number one, that's expensive stuff. Number two, it's heavy stuff. And I don't like either of those two things. And so it literally does not serve a purpose. Specifically why? If I could imagine having an assistant, some drone carrying my equipment, it still would slow me down because at least half of the photos here, sorry about the blowing, I'm trying to be loud. At least a huge percentage of my photographs purely are exploring, instinct, walking, climbing, looking around. And I benefit much more from being fast and quick and instinctive rather than, oh, I am going out with my equipment, tripod, angle, let me wait for some time. There is, sure, the photographs could actually be higher quality. If I come back and bring another camera and a tripod and redo a photo, yes, arguably it's a better photo when you zoom in and look around. I genuinely don't consider that to be an important part of my dialogue of where my joy comes from. So I have hit some challenges where, in terms of sales, people are like, great, I need a 12 by 16 foot photograph. Well, I'm zooming in and then I'm cropping and I'm doing my best and I'm shaking. So you zoom in or you print big, it's not going to look too good. And that's something that I easily just take it as part of the story. The photographs that happen, nobody looks at them and goes, it's a great photo, but man, it's a blurry photo. It's fine. It is blurry, but that's okay. I don't mind. So yeah, this is the camera. Literally wanted to bring it. This is 1600. It goes that far, and it's very, very light. And I think on Amazon it's $295 or something like that. Which I don't. Yeah, it's great to not have to worry about the camera. But if you take my memory stick, then I get upset. But the camera is fine. Meaning I don't care. This is a very recent photograph. Same building that I used in a previous photo, downtown Dallas. This is just an advertisement. I don't know for what, yogurt, Wi-Fi, I don't know. So I saw it, and this is just great stuff happening. Blue, 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 diagonal line, straight line, weird diagonals. And the light, when I came to it, the light was right here. There was shadow, I think on that side, so it was kind of here. Then I waited for it to be here, didn't like it, waited another 25 minutes, the shade was gone, and I like this a lot. It's sharp, it's strong, it's diagonal, it's curved, but it's not. All sorts of things are happening here. Of the building, yes. It's kind of a pretty strong angle that I'm at, and this one was climbing weird structure in a little alley that I'm not sure what I was on. It was legal, but it was a really strange, small up step, and then I'm standing and it perfectly removed the trees, crap around me, crap meaning nature, and humans. And there it was. And I kind of waited and played with it. Took probably 30, 40, 50 photos. And then this one was just the clarity. And I tried vertical, horizontal, vertical, which way the camera goes. Do I want no sky? Do I want to focus on the diagonal? We could flatten the diagonal, make that the anchor, and that is weird. But it actually became too weird that everything looks surreal. So, and that is an interesting, internally for me, interesting comment that you will see in some photos later that I will specifically, explicitly tell you, this is the trick in the photo for me. I anchored, here's the thing, we all understand it's a thing. I just removed the ground, removed reference points, and I anchored it sideways, and the whole thing is gone, and it's different. And that's that familiarizing, defamiliarizing, that is a joy. And sometimes it goes too far, and it's not fun anymore, and you just don't care. So I try to find the space that's defamiliarizing, but also familiarizing. And sometimes I go too far, and it just looks like complete nonsense that I don't want to look at myself, but it's super comfortable. But that's not valuable. So that's an internal dialogue of curating. Of all the photos I've ever published on my website, that is kind of my currency of photos that the world sees. All of my photos are available on the website, visible, coordinates, everything is there. There's only 88 photographs that I've ever shown. And I find almost the same pleasure removing a photo as I do in adding a new photo, because curating is extremely cathartic and important and good. And I do it all the time to purify what is it that I show to the world and to myself. I don't want to have a collection of 700 photos of the same building. I try to force it to be one. The brown one, I'm just eyeballing it, like how many buildings are there? Maybe 2 blocks. Well, this was open to nothing. Like this one was very much at whatever 100 or something. So this was not open like crazy. So this one did not extend it fully. That had sort of a weird visual effect. So the only fixing that I do, that I sort of have the skill to do, which gentleman asked earlier, is when the angle is such that the building starts doing this, I try to fix that in post-production in Photoshop, just kind of clean that up. And I do that minimally because I don't do it to kind of bastardize, then it becomes impossible photograph to take. So there are things that happen with my camera, being that it's not a very good camera. There's going to be a photo later on that I literally noticed, like, wait, what is this? And I talked to I think many of you here are way bigger experts about photography than I am in terms of helping me understand what sucks technically on a photo. So I saw something on a big print. I had a show at the Mahdi Museum in Dallas and printed a really big 50 by 40 photograph. And I'm looking and going, what is this halo? What is happening? Is this a crap print? Let me look at my JPEG raw. No, it's there. Camera made it. There's some ghost floating next to my building. So I contact my cousin, professional photographer. I'm like, what is this? And I think before I was done typing, he sends me whatever the thing that happens on cheap cameras. Like, that is what it is. And I forgot because I really didn't. So here we are. I learned that it's a problem that exists, but I did not solve it. And I am an engineer by trade, so that's interesting. There's so much that I love about this photograph. I just call it End of the City. And I've done one photo like this in New York. Not really a favorite of mine, but super popular in other ways. It was published, sold, and asked for. I did something about the New York one, but this is Dallas. So the front is Republic Tower, something like that. Yeah, the bank building, and then I mean just Dallas. And this is nothing. And this is taken from Clyde Warren Park, the corner right at the DMA and the Hunt building. And you kind of zoom in and zoom out and play with it and try to find it. So the fact that that antenna, or whatever I call it, antenna, extends all the way out, and then there's just a whole bunch of stuff happening, and there's also nothing happening right down the middle. End of the city, end of COVID. Maybe that should be the name. This was completely accidental. Which two buildings are these, if you know Dallas? You want to guess? Wait, what? Yeah, so that is the hotel, whatever it's called. And the one behind is Parkland Hospital. And this is from the Trinity River, from a particular angle where you can line it up. And that is a tough one to take, because I extended the camera here fully, and it's windy as hell, Trinity, and I'm just shivering. So I took maybe 100 photos, and it's blurry. But it's fantastic. The shape of the hotel gives wonderful natural gradient. That is just gorgeous. And the brown color of it is broken and weird looking, whatever these little things are, imperfections in the facade, but they're made to do that. And then you have almost similar quotes, Parkland, which is way behind, but I flattened it. And that, I think, extended my camera and my shakiness to its end. So I wanted to show it because there are beautiful things and luck in the photograph. Just weird luck. Walking around with nobody at Fair Park. This is the tent. That's the sky. And this is just whatever, Ferris wheel at Fair Park. I think to a large extent, it's my camera dancing weirdly with its cheap sensor, trying to figure out what's what. I don't think this is the true representation of the blue that happened, but I took the photo, opened it up and went, this. They're nearly identical colors. With some change, when you walk up and you see, this is a tent, that's the sky, and this is just a weird object coming out of it. I love the photo, although it doesn't bring any beauty, doesn't bring much of anything. There's not good light on this. The light also doesn't show that this is like white and green and red, whatever these things are called. This is the last one from COVID, if you will. This is the Hyatt Hotel again. This is me under the bridge, escaping from under the bridge, coming back into humanity and Earth, going to find my car. I fell into the Trinity that day, I remember that. Just stepped in to my ankles. This is just delightful. 30 is above me, or 35 or whatever. And it just looks fantastic to do that zippy line. and to use the light to my benefit, and waited for the no clouds. I think I came back twice, just waiting for the clouds to clear out. Just a nice dance between familiarizing with photos. So this is the end of the COVID-specific photography. I will just make a simple comment. It was very productive. It feels, to me, one of the greatest joys and freedoms is exactly that, to be left alone, to not have to worry about other people next to me, moving me around. I just want to stand still and think about this and enjoy it and move around and look for angles. And it's that freedom that brings me photographs that I enjoy. And COVID cleared out activity and people. And so it's definitely an unwanted thing to make light of that. It's such a shocking experience. So I'm just reflecting on a part of my peace of mind was grab my camera and go around. And there's actually joy, extra joy. I am being productive. I want to do this. I love photography purely for myself and then making it live and breathe. But there was a joy and simplicity knowing that nobody cares about a guy with a camera and they just let you be. And I find that to be very useful without trying to make a big philosophical thing about, harmony and peace internally. You had a question.
Do you not shoot on cloudy days?
I do shoot on cloudy days. Like the first photo, there were clouds. It's that if it's a really bad day, I try not to. But when I travel, I have no options. And if it's bad, and I have one particular photo, it was crappy weather, but ended up being one of my most popular photographs. So I don't have a strong, what I don't like to do is shooting in the rain is really kind of not possible. So this is Texas weather, statistically, what you saw between cloudy and not cloudy. And as the saying goes, if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes and then it's going to be better. So clouds are fast enough that I can kind of wait it out and just kind of see what happens. The very first photo, clouds were floating next to their garage, and I saw that they're kind of what's going to come in might line up with the garage. So I don't have a strong rule at all about that, but I'm mindful of weather when I travel or when I go out. Like, that's going to be a nice day. Let me try to do it. So this is the end of not that there is a lot of difference. You will just see me continue with photos after this. So now what I continue is just a little bit more Dallas-Fort Worth photographs. The very next one, you might be familiar with. That is one of the earliest photographs. Kelly was there with me. I climbed on some ledge next to a bank. I forget what street, but it's just a couple of hills west from Burnett Plaza. And this one, there was minimal correction in Photoshop instead of doing it in lens because I was pretty elevated, but still you could tell. So what you could tell would be that this line, it moves half a window outwardly at the top. And so I just figured out in Photoshop back then, like, wait a second, oh yeah, you can do that. To the extent that it's not science fiction, it just makes that artistic move no different than using a lens that has that same capability. So this is an example where I did it. But there's so much good stuff happening here with, you first recognize the shape of the elevator shafts, and then you recognize that it's kind of drawn on top of the facade, and then you recognize the shadows are not really strong, which is really lucky because your eye would then go into the shadows if the shadows were really strong, but they were not. So that was just lucky. And this is one of the definitely top 3, 4, 5 photos in terms of requests, and which at the end maybe we can talk if that's of interest to you, as I pitch a lot and work on my photography to be visible, to be published, to be in galleries and seen, and just a part of the dialogue. I enjoy offering my photographs and then seeing what the editor comes back and says, well, how about this one? And this is the one that they often go, yeah, what you submitted, sure. This is the one we would like to have. And that's just great. Yeah. Yes, like very, yeah, yes. I mean, this is still a striking building, exactly as I come to Fort Worth to visit kind people here. I drive by this building often and I don't shake my fist anymore. I'm just kind of very happy with that. It's such a great building all around for photography. This is the Thanksgiving Square looked at differently. And this one has a little halo up here, right there. You can't see it, but there's like a white ghost spirit of bad cameras, or me not knowing how to adjust things in RAW or whatever. But yeah, but this is a photo. It's called Time Space Discontinuum, and it just, if you're in Dallas, you might know what's happening. But the fact that this is perfectly going all the way up, and these two things have to try to coexist behind it. Where does one end? Where does the other one start? It just becomes a strange dance with reality. And this was just before COVID hit that I took that photo. This one I came back many times, waiting for no clouds. This one is called The Pyramid That Is Not There, because you see a 3D shape that doesn't exist. But this is the famous IMK building, the Fountain Place on Ross, downtown Dallas. And that one, definitely, I've shaken every fist I have trying to go, what do I do with this? And so I did figure out this shape happening, and I remembered what time it was, and I would come back the next day, and the next day, we used to live right on Ross, just up a couple of miles. And so I took photos with clouds, I took photos with extreme reflection here and here and here, just trying different things. And ultimately, this is the singular one that I thought is the strongest one, and I stuck to it. And it was great. And people, whoever owns that building or manages it, they saw the photo, requested a photo, so they have a photo in their offices on this, which is a huge joy as well. Same building, different one, different angle. This is one of the earliest photos, so much luck. Clouds, it looks like it's centered around here, like that's really strong light, and just good, nice dispersed sky. And this is when I mentioned anchoring a photo, almost like giving away my tricks, which is my philosophical truths of the normal, the 90-degree, this is normal to the ground. And then this is a weird thing. I mean, I actually still don't understand, and I've looked at the building forever. But I'm anchoring it on this. And that breaks the whole idea, where are you? And you don't have any trees, default, nothing, which is the beautiful dance, familiarizing, defamiliarizing. And so this is one of the earliest photographs where I recognize its value in dialogues with publications, with places that need photos. And so this photo is in quite a few rooms at the Statler Hotel in downtown Dallas. And it's funny when a hotel buys my photos and I find out it's in the bathroom, there's something funny about that. There's a friend here that I have that dialogue with that has my photo that is in the bathroom. But it was really great. It's not this photo, it's a different one, but I don't have this collection, but it's from Fair Park. And he was at the Statler like, oh my God, that's your photo. I'm like, oh, well, I never stayed at the Statler. Can you send him one? He's like, yeah. And there's just a toilet and my photo. And he's not trying to be funny, Brad, whatever the guy's name is. It was just great. Of course, it's all wonderful. I appreciate it. So, but it's funny, like, oh, it's in the toilet. I would make an argument. It's more observed than in some other places in that room. Yeah. Houston. The Book of Architecture is the name of this photograph. Two buildings that happen to be curved, rounded, catty corner across from each other, as best as I remember. So they look like they're clashing. They look like it's an open book. And so some extra things that are nice here. The very strong light and these little rectangles all the way up. That added to it, and you have beautiful lines that almost look like they're together, but these are totally unrelated buildings, unrelated structures, and sort of and the light, this kind of halo right there. Just lucky things, but the idea is two buildings that are round, they don't always look good. This was interesting. Oh, that's the toilet photo. Yeah, it's there. That's the official name. That is the Blue Green Mile. I called it. This is just sideways, like the ground is here. This is Fair Park behind the football stadium. I'm not sure what it is. And that's the Texas sky. And so down the middle, flipped it to the side, and I mean, you quickly arrive at reality, like, oh yeah, sure. But it's such a clean thing, and these look like beautiful ornaments of some kind. So this, to my surprise, has been I choose my words carefully, a popular photograph. Most recently, I think, there was an article about my photography in the Washington Post, And I pitched so many times. And finally it happened, and it was a wonderful experience. And once I gave my 30-something pitch to them, the editor that picked the story was like, this is fine, but can I look through all your photos and pick? And I'm like, great, that is such a great learning thing, let's do that. And he picks this photograph, which is this interesting thing that I don't sort of keep it up. I treat it like the Statler does, badly me, but they like it. Houston, I don't know the building, but very downtown. The address is on the website. This is just an indentation in the building, so it's just facade, dips in and goes back out. But at a certain angle, you're lost. And I'm using the rule of thirds, and those are the two anchors. So you kind of get lost. So the name is Hypnotic Building. Is it the same building? Is this just a thin building that's 3 windows wide? It's right next to it, or is it not? You don't have a good reference point to what's going on. And there's one photo, I definitely don't have them. I took it off my website, but it's of the Dallas building, one of the early photos, and I've used it and had it on my website and had it published here and there. And then years later, I'm playing in Photoshop, and I just see a woman staring at me behind in a window, and it was just wonderful. I didn't know, staring at me. It was just a woman that I found years later. This is the Perot Museum in downtown Dallas. Kind of a simple proposition. There's so many weird angles that they do, but what I wanted to do with that angle is the facade already messes with you. If you don't know, then you don't know what is happening, which is wonderful. That's the point. So the facade, what are these lines? They're not quite lining up. They are weird. They have their own shadows, and they have kind of a higher frequency, but then they have these side cuts. And then you see this line, which is the anchor, and there's grass growing. Where is this grass? It's all concrete. There's no sky. What is happening? So I spent a lot of time going around Perot, trying different things. I'm mostly happy with this photograph, but I still go back thinking, is there more that can be done? And I know their security detail quite well. I truly mean that. Like, I've seen it, and I wave, and they're fine. Calatrava Bridge. This is at the edge of my acceptance for my own website and my own collection. It's at the edge, but again, it's popular, and I kind of listen, and I go, popular meaning I don't react to that really, but it's interesting to hear. And the Dallas Morning News ran a story and ran this in print, and it just kind of blew up in Dallas, and I was contacted to make this available a lot. So just giving you a story that to me it's at the edge, but I call it moon tennis. It looks like a tennis racket, clapping that moon out. Yeah, it's kind of cliche-ish, but it's at the borderline, and it's fine. It's fine to live in that space of uncertainty for me. That's why I take stuff out of it. I think for 5 days, should I move that photo 1 step down, 2 steps up on the website? Should I take it away? As if anybody cares, but I do. So I spend a lot of time worrying about this. A wonderful experience happened with this. A lady saw the text in the print. It was the Life and Arts section of the Dallas Morning News, the print thing about art, and it was on the cover. And so a lot of people contacted me about this photograph, and the lady wanted to buy one. I organized that, and I met up with her. And so she said, she tells me beautifully, that's the Santiago Calatrava Bridge. I'm like, yes, I know. I have shut my hands at it. I understand that. I've suffered under it, next to it. She's like, I met Santiago Calatrava, and I've driven him around, and I worked for the city of Dallas. I was the main person, liaison that would pick him up, drive him around. And I'm just like, oh my God, tell me. And so she would tell me stories about Santiago Calatrava, what they would do and how and what. And so she says, by the way, and she points to this, that section. She's like, that section right there, my autograph is on the inside of that thing. All of City of Dallas employees, whatever department that is, I don't know exactly, but it's a big, huge thing. And Santiago Calatrava was there, and everybody else, and everybody that worked on making this bridge happen signed it. So she points to the photo I just gave her, and like, my autograph is in there, and I'm like, because she asked me where she wanted my signature on the photo, I'm like, is the signature good? She's like, yeah. by the way, my signature is also in this photo, which I was puzzled. And so it's a wonderful connection. I mean, these things of kind of finding out what the photos mean to people. And after that story, I'm not touching this photo. That's staying on the website because it just has this interesting value to it. Yes.
What would a print of that cost? Or what do you sell it for?
So it depends, kind of, I'm represented by various galleries in various spaces. So in Dallas, the anchoring price at After Image Gallery, which is one of the oldest galleries in the United States, if not the world, for photography, 24 by 20 photograph is $500. That's kind of the anchoring price. And that is, I sort of don't anchor that publicly, but I'm answering here because the dialogue is okay. I'm not sitting here to sell photographs. So prices are a very flexible thing in the world of fine art. And so different galleries operate differently and they have different purposes. This is like a nicely matted photo that's ready to be framed. So I sell just rolled up prints that it's a part of a series. I sign it, certify it, and ship it anywhere around the world in a nice tube. And that's kind of less cost, but I have to insure it and ship it across the world. So price kind of varies with that. But larger prints, if you buy a larger print in New York City, it's quite a bit more because they can't do that. And if you buy it in my home country of Serbia, it's very inexpensive. So, yeah. I mean, truly, it's just you can't sell a $500 photograph in Serbia. That's not a thing. The economic model doesn't work. For this photograph, I would like to thank Kelly Ball for making this photograph happen because I took this photograph and thought, and Kelly would be like, hey, that thing, the one with the bird, where's that? I don't see it. I'm like, I don't know. No, it's a really good photo. You need to do something with that. And over time, I realized, wrong, right? Truly, just what the hell was I thinking? So what's happening here is this is Clyde Warren Park. If you know the stage at Clyde Warren Park, it's kind of curves upwards on the edges. And on that edge at the corner, it reflects the shrubbery on the side of the road facing the Dallas Museum of Art. And so what you see is the reflection of the shrubbery. And you can kind of see that layout. This is the green point of the awning of the ceiling. Just mirrors, and that pigeon just happens to be there. And it's just really great. And it was just lucky and clear. And this is cloudy, but it's really good that it's cloudy. And it's not cloudy in a way that's like, here's the photo and here's a cloud. You kind of don't even walk away going, oh, that was a cloudy photo. But it has a nice texture that almost continues. The saturation of all of this continues in the clouds, and it helps actually lose the depth that you're like, what is happening? And a lot of lucky things happen. And this was featured on the cover of a USA Today story about my photography, and then Clyde Warren Park used that on their social media. And then people contacted me about that photo. So it kind of lives and breathes in that space. But a lot of lucky things happen here, and it's nicely balanced. This is not accidentally the middle of the photo, so it just nicely balances things out. We're done with Dallas-Fort Worth. We're done with COVID. Hopefully for real. And so this is, I just wanted to sort of end. There's still a few photos. I have no idea where I'm at time. So if somebody can start telling me when the time is over, I'll stop. I wanted to show some photos that are just from my whole collection that have been personally wonderful or whatever the story is. This is definitely one of the strongest photographs. United Nations from New York City and the Chrysler Building. They're down 42nd Street. They are good, what is it? This is the very edge, so that is 3rd Avenue. This is the avenues in New York City that is between them. And so many things worked out. Similar to the Wiley Theater, this looks like a broken file. United Nations building is wonderful. What's the guy? Oscar Niemeyer, the architect. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And so it's a wonderful, simplistic building for a reason. You don't have any anchor. What's happening? It looks like files. It looks industrial. And then it stops, and then you have a visual where this is kind of either, even if you don't know it, it's sort of this shared language if you live in the United States or maybe even internationally. It's just kind of recognizable. You might be like, oh, is that Empire State is in Chrysler, but it's a shared visual. And then you have this ambiguous sky that's kind of bluish, but kind of grayish. And so this is absolutely a wonderful opportunity. You're in Queens, facing Manhattan. This is the east side of Manhattan. And you can walk up and down for about 2 miles. Beautiful park, rent a scooter, go up and down, and you have all of the east side of Manhattan to take photos and play with and wait for the light to change. And I go to New York City once a year, spend some time there, and take photos from here, on and on. So this took maybe 4 or 5 years of just trying and trying and trying, and one time it just exploded in my mind. This is what needs to happen. Kelly Ball, you have a question? Thank you very much for the question. Yes, this photograph does not exist anymore because there's a huge big building behind the Chrysler building. And so it's gone as a visual possibility. So yeah, it's literally, I lined it up afterwards, and there's just a big building that sticks out here and there. It's just a weird thing. So yeah, the building, the photograph cannot be replicated. And this photograph had a wonderful renaissance, a wonderful journey where the United Nations picked it up for their social media. So they posted it on their main Instagram. And then every United Nation around the world picked it up on theirs. And that was just wonderful. And I love the notion of unity and what United Nations at the core represents, away from the politics, so as not to get complicated in that, but it's just wonderful. So it would just be in Brazil, in Vietnam, my country, in Switzerland, all over the world, United Nations posting things in their languages and people contacting me in their languages, and I'm trying to figure out what is it that I could do, and it was just wonderful. So I sent the photograph to the United Nations, to the building as well, and that is just the joy of all joys. You had a question? This is across the East River in Manhattan. So that's Manhattan. I'm in Queens, across the East River. It's quite a bit of a distance. So I did not have to do maybe microscopic correction for that line to be parallel. But actually you see it. You still see it kind of weirdly not lining up. So I didn't have to adjust much because it's a good distance from me and it did not require it. So that's that. This is LA. I think you guys use this on the story on your website. So this is a pretty recent photo, January of last year. And yeah, this is a design school of some kind, a green building and a red building and kind of a colorless white grayish one. And just a lot of triangular shapes. And like exactly where is gravity? Is this building? Is it falling into this one? Is this triangle? Is that the anchor? And so the name of this is The Clash of Titans. This is called Petrus. And it's untouched, long distance. This is from same spot as the New York one, but just facing further down, quite a bit down on Manhattan, the left side. Forget the name of the building. But I was in touch with them on Instagram and they saw the photo because the New York Times ran a quiz about my photography. They would show a photo and then ask people, where is this? And I think this is one of those that kind of a lot of people saw it. And so the photo is just the blue shapes. This is normal shape of that building. And that is a normal shape of that building with that little extension. I just lined it up as best as I could. And you have these gradients of orange, different kind 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 of orange, total shade, almost dark, back to light, a whole bunch of rectangles, weird shapes, just wonderful experience. And I have probably 200-300 versions of this where you just focus on one blue opening, you focus on two, and this one is a very strong one. Because actually, all of these vertical lines, I wanted to push against it and offer the photograph horizontally rather than to kind of honor the vertical anchor. I wanted to break that and make it or just disorient you even more and just focus on it as a horizontal print. Cloudy, crappy day in Washington, D.C. A rainy day. I was there visiting my brother years ago and I had maybe 45 minutes in the city, rainy, crappy day. And I went to obviously the monument, and this is the Museum of African American history, forget the full name, I apologize. And just, it's normally dark reddish, bronze, rusty color, but no, it's not in this thing. And so that is dark and complex and sharp. This is dark, everything is gray. And then you have these little triangles that are negative space. And this one is released. There's an opening, and there's a tension between these shapes as the monument kind of disappears into the clouds. A wonderful thing that at first I thought, here's a crappy thing. I wish it was nice weather, but I printed it and looked at it, and it was just a very strong visual. So that's probably the worst weather that I've kind of found something to work. But as part of my philosophy of what all of this is about, there's absolutely no ever expectation or really care. Do I succeed in taking a photo? Anytime I walk in Dallas, anytime we travel anywhere for any reason, I could spend 8 hours in the city and go, oh my God. And I walk away with like, yeah. And that's completely okay, because I don't ever want to have the burden of success or quality of any kind, because it simply cannot be forced and should be forced, in my view of my truth in this case. So that is for the crappiest weather I've experienced. Happy weather, opposite. Miami, accidental find. There's a big parking lot between buildings. This and this is a block, 2 blocks apart. So much stuff is going on here that I recognize later on. It's the same apartment complex. They're the same company, that's not accidental. But just, this is clean colors, and this is kind of weathered and whatever. I noticed these lines, I noticed those lines, I noticed these reflections, that huge line, these whatever ducts are. And then I start noticing that side line, much like that one, and these gradients. And I kind of used the rule of thirds. That's perfectly split in 2/3, 1/3, kind of quoting the basic framework that we often live in. And so that is just such a powerful set of colors, and it's a completely real thing that sort of doesn't exist like this in the real world. These are different buildings. But it's the juxtaposition of this clean, strong, and this kind of weaker that I think really worked. We're getting kind of close to the end. This is, what is this? You have guessed everything, so I'm pointing to you. That is exactly what it is. Round of applause, please. This is just awesome. Seriously, you're just getting this. It's just awesome. Brooklyn Bridge Station, 456, 100 and something years old. So what I'm removing, what I did not take a photo of, is the pillar that holds that is right missing, and it just goes on. It's a pretty regular shape. And I spent a good 2 hours sitting on the floor and just thinking of a way, how can I collapse 3D into 2D and make it sort of unrecognizable? You don't understand the depth, the height, the width, the heaviness. Where are you? What's happening? And this is, I'm just sitting on the ground, and this is, as high as this ceiling or whatever. There's no color, but I didn't adjust color. It's just flat, but this is a beautiful bend right here, like that saturation right there. And you can actually see one little bitty light bulb that I couldn't take out. It's right there. At those pillars, there's light bulbs somewhere. It's a very normal shape when you look at it. You can literally look it up from my coordinates or look up subway station or whatever, and you'll see it. So yeah, this photo is just so flat and kind of paralyzing with what's happening in it. Yeah, good luck with that one. I mean, if you, I say that playfully, okay, yes. It's a really strange looking building. Bjarke Ingels, Danish architect, Bjarke Ingels Group, BIG, pretty well-known architectural firm. He's a very young guy for the world of architecture, especially, I think maybe late 30s, early 40s, might be late 30s. And this is on 57th Street on the west side of Manhattan, so whatever, 14th Avenue at the very edge. And it's just a really strange, weird shape. So this is normal to the ground. The ground is that, which also adds up with this. This is just a weird shape. It's a building and a building that's twirled around. So you look at the building and you go, yeah, this is really weird. And you can take a photo of the weird building and go, I have a photo of the weird building. This was taking a ferry across to New Jersey, which I've done for this building probably 7, 8 years as it was being built and finished, just trying to do different things. And I'm sorry? This is the most recent photograph on the website. It's just called 3, because you have 3 nice sections, and it's the most recent one. Yeah, and I show you the bench where I was sitting. And that is really good for stabilizing, because I can do this. And it's really, that's pushing it. This is a blurry photo. There's blurriness to it. I can bring a different camera, bring a tripod, but I don't. So yeah, the coordinates are there, and the building is just fascinating. It's called VIA, V-I-A, VIA 57th or 58th Street. But the coordinates are there. So yeah, that is the most recent photo that I've shown to the world. This is an example of a photography exploration that sort of was, say, underwhelming. I expected to take more photos and to explode my mind, because this is in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is such a saturated space, so many buildings, but it actually was suffocating. I need space to take a photo, but I don't know where to go. You have to go to mainland China to take a photo of Hong Kong. You have to fly, literally. I mean, it's a fascinating urban story about the cost of real estate and how they live. Well, this is on the other side of main Hong Kong City, on the other side of the island, where super wealthy people have their other homes. And this is just a narrow, beautiful building. And that is just the hills of Hong Kong right behind. And it's the Hong Kong trip that I expected to come back with 50 photographs. And I think I came back maybe with 1 or 2. And again, I say it with a smile, but I never, for mental health and for just productivity and for the philosophy of photography, I never have a burden for, let me go out and take a photo. It just doesn't matter. Everything is an exercise. Everything is oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh no, that's a cliche that has been around for 1,000 years. All of it is very much a valuable thing, regardless of a photo that might exist at the end. I think we're getting close to the end. This is the Walt Disney Opera thing in LA, Walt Disney Performance Center, where the LA Philharmonic plays. That's the Philharmonic, Frank Gehry looking building. That's the architect, and this is just a building 1 block behind with a parking garage behind it. Everything is gray, everything is flat. And that was bad weather in LA. That is such a weird thing. I've been to LA so many times, but bad weather is not normally what I have to deal with. Oklahoma City, just a weird set of reflections, just a gradient. There's that, slowly becomes this, and then there's that, reflecting on itself. Just a wonderful discovery. Thank God, no windows, no people. Kelly, do you know what this is? We've tried this many times. We've looked at it in 3D. I think we have to fly. Yeah. So this is Las Vegas Luxor Hotel behind it, the pyramid-looking thing. And there are just stairs behind it that are very decorative. And so this is tile and where water would flow. And these are the steps in which you stand. And that's shade, that's this shadow, and these are, again, steps that go this way up. The coordinates are online, but this has been one of those things, when you have to stare at it and it's 2D, 3D, and then you see like, there's a Santa Claus behind it. It's that kind of thing that people would stand and like, where should I focus? What should I do? Where am I? What is happening? But that's just steps in Vegas. New York City, one of my earliest photographs, blue on blue. This is ridiculous building by itself, Frank Gehry, that just happens to quote the same blue colors, just next block. They have nothing to do with one another. But even taking this photo right here, it's already a weird thing. It's really hard to anchor what is happening. It's a strange looking building with extremely expensive glass that was flown in from Italy. So it's a wonderfully strange bluish industrial visual. Aha. One of my favorite photographs. This is to me Cubism. You can see time and space. You can see time passing because this is in front of the Prado Museum in Milan in Italy. These are just decorative plastic PVC tubes. So I wanted to show a light that has two sides and a light that has one. And every one of the tubes shows light bending these lights differently. There it is, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is again, and then it disappears. So the name of this is the speed of light. To me, one of my absolutely philosophically most important photographs, and the most recent bidder place to publish my photos, the Washington Post. When the editor looked at the photos, he picked this one, which is just a personal joy of finding that to be meaningful. But you literally see how time changes and how light passes through different types of plastic. And to me, it is just a wonderful contemplative photograph. We're getting close to the end. Chicago, University of Chicago, or is that the name? I'm not sure, but it's downtown. I've looked at this photo for years, what to do with it, and finally I chose this particular one. It just looks eerie and surreal, and it looks like the Windows opening scene, whatever, just like that hill. That's normal, regular grass, but really nice and crisp. Really good stuff here, and then this is just some sort of a container that was painted nicely behind it, and there's like a concession stand on the back side of this. But when you abstract that, what is happening? And this is just floating, and this is floating, and there's some sort of a color, and that was all that I needed for the photo. This is the headquarters of Milan soccer team in Milan. And it's a really weird angled building, and you are lost without knowing without knowing the building. What is the anchor? What are the windows? What is up? What is down? And the lucky thing is, this is obviously some ornament. That's a soccer player, and there is another soccer player here and another one over there. But there is just one black line that kind of points to that guy up there. This was a mean photograph that the New York Times quiz, and they showed 16 of my photographs, and they would just show the photo and go guess. And there's like 4 options around the world. How in the world can you guess where this is? But they chose to put this, and this is in Romania, a small village in Romania. The photo is, this is just an old building that is being fixed. And this is a tarp. This is not a piece of art. This is just planes flying out of Bucharest. And this is one broken tarp, and this is underneath all of these, but that is the one that came out. And these lines and these incredible, heavy, tarpy things, and the fact that one broke through just gives you this like wavy, happy thing with like this weird darkness. And to me, personally, a very strong photograph that is completely surreal, but it's just a tarp on a building in Romania. And so New York Times guy is like, that's the one we're going to show them. I'm like, how is that meaningful quiz? I mean, I can show you a photo of my shoe, and like, where is that shoe? It makes no sense. But he's like, no, it should be playful. And when they published the quiz, it was last August, it was absolute, this is just giving a side thing. We can talk about this if it's interesting, when the lights are up and the photos are done, which is very soon. About sort of publishing is not like, ooh, you're being published, but just these stories of what actually happens. And so once they published this in the world of architecture, it exploded. And people just everywhere were playing the quiz, reaching out and like, I got 7 out of 14. Oh my God, my dad is angry. He got only 3. Like these wonderful stories, including people from Romania going, that photo is not good. Romania looks better than that. Which is fine. Like it's wonderful to, and I had to do, I'm sorry? Nobody got everything out of them pure luck because it's sort of impossible. But this building, I will just give a side thing. It was a wonderful thing. I show coordinates for every photo that I post. And so New York Times guy, the editor for the travel section was like, great, we're going to use that. So when they guess whatever, they make their choice, they'll give you the correct one. And you click and you go and look at the street view and so forth. So he asked me for the 14 or 16 photos they picked. He's like, are you sure about all the coordinates? And I'm like, yes, but let me just check. And I go and I check. And I remember this. And I remember that I kind of eyeballed it. I couldn't remember. I couldn't. And I tell him like, look, I can't remember this. so maybe we shouldn't use it because I'm very honest about these coordinates. And he's like, it's fine, nobody really cares. I'm like, I really actually care, give me a couple of hours. And that's when Jason Bourne technology stuff started happening. And I used photos, Kelly was with me in Romania, we were in my home country of Serbia and took a day trip to Romania. I looked at some photos that Kelly had from the trip, and I'm looking through them, and I see a photo of me and Kelly in front of a store, and I see a reflection of another store behind it, and I look it up in that city, and I find that store, and then I go there in Street View, and I look at the timestamp of when this photo was taken. I'm like, we are within 45 seconds of this. And then I walked around that in Romania on Street View until I found still the same building with the same, minus the tarp. It was there. And so I sent it to him, and he's like, this is great. So actually on the quiz, you can see the building now. But so it's interesting how these things come to be, that it's not just, oh, are the photos good? There's so much other stuff behind the scenes, at least in my world, which is a big joy as I love to travel and I love to experience these things. Yes. Yes, it's a very good question, and yes, and I've thought about this a lot. I don't have enough, there's almost no meaning in saying, well, okay, in this photo, there's really 4 things, but you don't notice the 4 things. So let me tell you what is the 4th thing. It starts losing its meaningful data. So I only show the singular, non-vague thing, which is I am right there. And from there, if somebody's like, wait, I don't get it, I'll respond and I go, okay, well, turn this way and look, that's that building from here, and I climbed and I'm kind of there, but I'm really in the bank building on the roof. And I explain what I did. But yeah, I show where I am because I think that is the most central core thing of I was here, so you can also be able to look at it. But I can't really keep track of every building and remember where the coordinates were. That is really homework. But I can very much remember where I am because I'm super aware of my surroundings when I walk. Yeah, no, this one won't, but I mean, on my phone, I know, it keeps track of that. So for sure, there are cameras that do that, but I also, I just remember exactly where I was. Anytime I publish a photo, I retrace, like I was right here, there it is, and I use those coordinates. So I'm very careful, but to a certain degree, that the idea is to be playful and to open the dialogue and just have people open source it and do their own thing. And so I don't sort of overly worry about it. This is the Getty Museum in LA. Am I saying it right? Yeah, Getty, not Gary. Getty Museum. Wonderful, wonderful museum. That's just the facade behind it, and this is just some supporting beams where I cut out the rest and it looks like a cross. And that is really in focus and bright, and the thing behind is not, but then you see almost like this from the above. So this was literally a single photo. I was there on a business trip. There was a conference in Long Beach, California. I took my colleague, drove all the way up there, spent 1 hour at the Getty, took 5 photos. This was the last photo on the road on just that trip, and then we had to fly back. Very lucky. Hong Kong, no, not Hong Kong. Macau, sort of China. Well, Macau, China, Macau. Independent part of China, similar to what Hong Kong used to be. This is the world famous Lisboa big casino, and the name of the photo is Red Dot, with sort of quoting the idea that the Chinese government, communist government, has you observed from across the ocean with their lasers and eyesight set on Macau. The name of this photograph from Milan is Nature, imitating architecture, imitating nature. Observe what's happening, luckily. This is 2 buildings in Milan, Italy, that are famous for healthy, good, whatever, renewal, energy. There is a lot of greenery and grass growing everywhere, and there's another building. Actually, I think that's a separate building. That's the shape. That's just another building. There are kind of 2 right there. But the shape I see is this. So this is the building imitating nature with all this. And then happily right here, there's the exact same thing with the exact same shape imitating that. That was all I needed. That was the photo. And I was in Milan for maybe 36 hours. I think we have just a 2 photos left. Chicago, some university, no, that's not Columbia University. Roosevelt, thank you, yeah. So it just looks like the sky at first, and then you recognize it's not the sky, it's kind of this digitized thing. And a super juxtaposed, very old, very kind of a digitized, constructed sky. This looks surreal, or it looks like art, but it's not. It's a very functional, physical thing. This is in New York City at the US Open, Arthur Ashe Stadium. They added a roof recently. This is the supporting beams that hold the roof all over Arthur Ashe. So this is all over it. There are these places where it's just so many pipes. So this is on the 3rd floor of the spectators, and I'm walking around looking for the right angle. And this was the most saturated amount of pipes that I could find. And there's just beauty in this that you don't know, is this an art installation at the Whitney, or is this just regular pipes that hold up a roof for a tennis tournament? And that ambiguity, is this art or not? And is it art once it's on a photo? Let that be kind of the dialogue that you take away from. But I do find the visual, and a few of my friends have this in their homes. Also New York, next to MoMA number 2 in Queens, not the main MoMA up in Manhattan. Lucky, some tarp, whatever, I don't know. And behind it is a building that here's a normal looking facade, and then there's squares. So squares, not squares, big opening, small opening. Just a wonderful visual dance between the two. I think there are 2 photos left. This one is called the mug, because it looks like a mug. This is the sky. This is the building. That's the facade of the building. This connects it to exactly the same thing right here. And it's just 2 parts with whatever that circular thing is. But I cut out around. I'm not showing you that. I wanted this to be, because of this similarity to this, it just looks like a mug you pick up. And this is in Miami, some hotel, I forget that. But it's such a close green-blue that it looks like, wait, where's the sky? Oh, obviously here's the shadow. But this just connects to the replica of that on the other side. That's what the hotel looks like. Denver, Colorado, the museum, Denver Museum of Art. That's what the main thing is, this triangle. And this is a good 4 blocks behind. And I don't know what these holes are or what this really is. I think it's very fully decorative. And this building just stops right behind us, but I'm anchoring it. That's where you would see the building continue, and the building is behind us, but I let it stop right there. So where are you and what's happening is kind of ambiguous, including what is this? I don't know. And I was in Denver again not that long ago, and I walked there. I still don't know what it is, but it's a part of the museum, a wonderful, wonderful museum, close to downtown. I think this is the last photo. It's called Warp, and also Wrap, Warp/Wrap, W-R-A-P. Mercedes building, just the name of an apartment building in New York City, very close to the weird one, via 57th. They're pretty much next to each other. And I just walked right up to it because it has a really weird bend. And so this is really where your eyes are. This is just normal windows, normal stuff happening. But there's a curvature, a very normal curvature. If you step away, this is very normal look. But I am saying that this is my dominant field. This is the plane in which your eyes exist. And you normally start scanning a visual kind of left to right, normal in the Western culture. And then you just go, I don't know what's happening. This is just, it's falling off or falling up or falling down. So it's wonderful light, wonderful amount of saturation, sameness, and then it just, and it's unclear what's happening. And I played a lot with how much of this should I show? Should this be half of it? Should it be half of what I show you? And that's to me where the photo was made or not made successfully. But this is just, it's easy to get lost in it. And that is the last
Question. How did you develop your enthusiasm for and expertise in architectural photography?
This project which is referred to as structure photography. It started 10 years ago in New York City, where I saw a building from Frank Gehry, but it was not shown here. And I wanted to take a photo from the Brooklyn Bridge. And I thought, what I've described here today, I'm not sure what to do with this, almost like shaking my fist at it. What do I do with this? And ultimately what the photo was, I simply zoomed in vertically and just took out the facade, which gave you that thing that you're lost, you don't know where you are. I went home, looked at that photo, looked at the other photos from the trip. All of my attention went to that Frank Gehry photo. And then I literally went back and looked at other photos and I thought, oh my God, I can redo the photos, zoom in and find it to be either interesting or still not interesting. And that's where it started. And that was 10 years ago in New York City where this project is. And from there, it was step by step. These are really things that connect dots. I love travel, I love architecture, I love urbanism, I love the culture of the saturated possibilities of a city. So I love being in a city, and if you love being there, then it's easy to spend a lot of time. And so it started from there. But it was about 10 years ago that it started, and the expertise really, as you might have gathered from this, I don't have particular expertise with cameras and equipment, nor do I really, I just solve problems. Oh, I need a camera that does this great. And I don't interest myself in anything more than that. So I put all of my focus into photography and in nothing else. And that has been a very good return on investment, if you will. And that's where it started, and it goes at a very good pace.
Any other questions? Your enthusiasm in your presentation is excellent.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind.
This is one of the more enjoyable and best programs we've had in a long, long time. And I expect if we call you in a few years to give us a new program, we'll be needing to talk to your agent and paying a speaker's fee.
You can call me next week. I'll be back here with more photos, no agents. It's no problem. I love doing this. I love the dialogue. I love the questions and the way it makes me think about photography. So if there are any other questions, I can answer them about any facet of photography that I understand and enjoy, or we can turn on the lights and be done with the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.